Well, Jen, welcome to another episode of No Expectations, the podcast. Um, this is the day after the election here in the United States. It's November 6th, and
Yeah.
um, my phone has been kind of melting this morning with a bunch of nervous people. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
How are you holding up?
Man, I woke up this morning. I woke up this morning and I am just in
Well, that's
gratitude.
important. That's important
Yeah,
to wake
right.
up this morning.
I went into the election. I will say I am disappointed in the results, but I'm not holding on to that disappointment. I knew yesterday my mindset going into before the polls even closed was I'm still going to wake up Wednesday, hopefully, and I'm going to have the heart to serve, and I'm going to have a spirit that moves through this world to make it a better place. It's a little emotional, but yeah, that's how I'm holding up.
I mean, there's nothing. I'm not laughing at you. I'm happy in that you're being so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um, and vulnerability takes guts. And now's an emotional time, and we're all kind of still trying to digest what has happened, and as we kind of think about what our future might look like. Um,
Yeah.
and how we can continue our journey spiritually to enrich ourselves and the people around us in a very tumultuous time.
For some, it's not. It's a joyful celebration time.
Right. And I don't mean it that way. I think there is like this, depends on who, and regardless of who won, I still think there is this tension, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so how do we as spiritual beings, people who are connecting to ourselves and on our journey of self-awareness, how do we navigate that, and how do we continue to do our best to maintain our energy, not
Mm-hmm.
positivity, just but maintain our energy and keep our journey alive.
Yeah.
um, so I think I want to talk about, really kind of go back to what No Expectations is all about and what we're talking about here, and like what the kernel of what this podcast is all about. I want to talk about ways that we can find contentment in a very difficult time,
Mm-hmm.
and just have a conversation about the human experience in what's going on right now in this world.
Yeah. How are you this morning?
I am um, I'm okay. I think I told you, you texted me yesterday and you were like, hey, what are you going to, whatever. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to watch the news for 24 to 36 hours. And I've done my best to do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Being here in New Orleans is a hotbed of very liberal, open um, community. And so it's walking the streets this morning, it was very somber outside.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be respectful of that and be compassionate about that, and understand that there's a lot of people who are confused in the moment, and I'm trying to give everyone the space, whether their person won or didn't,
Yeah.
trying to give them space and understand that I have no idea where everybody is mentally. I have no idea what's going on in other people's minds.
Yeah.
But trying to go back to your point, I guess the question was, how am I doing? It's like I'm trying to continue my journey with understanding that there's so much that's out of my control, and
All of it.
and understanding that I need to do the best I can within the bounds that I have in front of me. And so, yeah, I'm struggling a little bit, and I'm sure as the weeks go on, I'll continue to kind of process it and go through stuff as we all do.
Yeah.
But let's take a break. Let's come back, and then let's jump in.
That sounds good.
This is No Expectations, the podcast where we have unedited, lively conversations about spirituality, Zen Buddhism, holistic living, and everything in between.
All right, welcome back to our continuing conversation of, I guess we're talking about contentment. I don't know really what we're talking about.
Contentment, joy, peace.
Yeah, I mean, can I just give you like a quick microcosm of what's been going on in my week so far?
If I told you no, would you do it anyways?
Uh,
Sure, I'd love to know. No, no, come on, tell me.
yeah, duh.
Let's go.
um, so I had the great and distinct honor of going to my longtime friend's father's 90th birthday on Saturday.
Wow, 90?
90 years old. And like I haven't seen him in many many years, and I always like in my mind when I think about this gentleman, I always think he always had a smile on his face, and it was always a good day, and he was maybe a little bit inappropriate, like but in an old school way, in a very lovable way, like
Okay, yeah.
but a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was never meant with any malice. So let me just say that it was always meant in fun and good fun.
Yeah.
So I saw him for the first time, and they had a big birthday party for him in Baton Rouge. And he's getting around on his own. He doesn't need a walker or a cane or anything. And he's moving around and making his own meals and doing his thing. And I was like, man, this guy's a role model. Like what, and I really didn't have a lot of time to spend with him because it was a big party and all that stuff. But I had a few moments with him, and I was like, what's the secret sauce? I mean, what keeps you going? To be not only physically sharp but mentally sharp and into it. And then he, was like, well, I do what I'm supposed to do. I exercise and do all that stuff, and then and I said to him, I said, well, you know what I always remember about you is that you always had a smile on your face, and you were never having a bad day. And he stopped and he goes, you know what? You're right. I never did. And, it was like he had to like stop and think about that himself. It wasn't like he was pushing himself through every day to go, put a smile on your face. God damn it. It just came either maybe at some point he was maybe early in his life, but it becomes such a routine for him to not bright side everything, but like, hey, there's things are going on that are not always great in my life, but I can still be happy. I can still smile and understand the power of that. And so to me, that was really big to see, somebody who is is honestly what 38 years younger than I am.
Yeah. Spring chicken.
Chicken. He's out there smiling and being happy, and I'm at
You're
128 and just is
crotchety as hell.
crotchety, curmudgeon. So you get off my lawn, but I don't have a lawn. That kind of guy. So it was really refreshing and interesting. And strangely enough, I had met another gentleman at a place that I work out at, and he's turning 88. And I want to have a conversation with him about his longevity because he's like in the gym. Like out of all the places I want to be when I'm 88, it's sure as heck not the gym.
Mm.
But he's into doing it.
Yeah.
So finding that thing and that contentment and that little bit of happiness was pretty interesting to me. Because you think in 90 years you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what are you like 32?
No,
Eh,
somewhere in there.
eh. So
I
um,
am. Yeah.
that was interesting and it was very enlightening for me. And then the following day, I came back to New Orleans and I volunteered with an organization here that's called the Santosha Village, which is we know from our yogic studies is the part of our practice and the discipline of the yamas and niyamas is contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a bus that comes to outside the shelter in downtown New Orleans, and it offers food and coffee, clean showers, and haircuts to the homeless. And it was my first time volunteering with this organization and kind of seeing we have a homelessness issue here. I'm not sure the exact term that's accepted now, like without
Unhoused.
without,
Yeah.
without home or whatever. But so there's quite a number of people that are living on the streets. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate to talk to a bunch of them and interface with them. And I learned a lot about myself and the way I hold my own energy. But that's a conversation for another time. But one of the gentlemen came to me and we were making I was sitting there thinking, oh, well, I'm going to be done here at 1 o'clock and I can't wait to go have a cup of coffee. Like, I'm going to go down to this really great coffee shop and have this really great cup of coffee. It's like, something now that I think is totally pretentious. Probably I thought about it was pretentious before. This gentleman comes up to the coffee table and I pour him probably the most disgusting cup of coffee that I've ever seen into a styrofoam cup and hand it to him. And he takes it and he's like, oh, that is really good.
No.
And he says, we really take, a lot of things for granted. That's what he said to me. And I was like, And again, everything is here for your enlightenment, right?
Yeah.
And the dude just dropped a bomb on me right there in that moment. Like, this, while it might be garbage to you who's serving it to me, means a lot to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the idea of, okay, like, it was a reminder for myself to like check yourself and go, yeah, be grateful for what you have and what's in front of you, and find contentment in that. So two very interesting interactions for me within 2 days, and learned a lot about myself and learned a lot about my own process and spiritual journey as I go on, and thinking about knowing how much is enough, and even that knowing is satisfaction, is a place of joy and peace, calm, and enrichment for myself.
Yeah, I think those are really interesting, like little pieces that the universe gave you this weekend to reconnect with your gratitude. And I think we take for granted the things that we have so much that we forget to be grateful for them. Again, I think taking for granted is the opposite of gratitude, and being grateful for the great cup of coffee, but just being grateful for the ability to wake up in the morning and reconnect, with your spiritual self is so important in these days and, these moments when things are a little bit swirling and chaos, that
Right.
having gratitude, I think, is a recipe for living a long life that is joyful and content.
Yeah, and I mean, contentment is entirely an individual thing, right? And what we find that it enriches us and makes us is unique to every one of us. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just that constant reminder that sometimes enough is enough, and like we work in a society or live in a society where we're thinking that what's the next thing, where's the next thing, where's the next rung on the ladder, or how what's the next zero that I can add to my bank account balance, when in reality, like, what are we chasing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I go back to the quote by the Zen master Suzuki that's like, imagine looking back on your lives after we die, we'll see that so many things didn't really matter, and like zeros in the bank account, and all the time and stress for for things that really didn't matter, and whatever that is to you. I'm not going to get
Yeah.
into that. Maybe that's work or family or whatever that is, things that are beyond your control. Like, do those things really, really matter in the scheme of things?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, tell me what your thoughts are.
I don't. I just keep trying to cultivate this inner peace that, when these things are out of my control, and to me, being content and having gratitude and finding inner peace are all things that I'm constantly working on or sharpening to kind of step forward through my day to day and be okay with it. Be okay when it goes chaotic. And yeah, I sometimes we need reminders like the unhoused man that, with a cup of coffee this weekend. I don't know. It's just, I think we have to be awake and listening and watching for these reminders to.
Yeah, and as we started this episode and we're talking about this like uneasiness of where we are in the world right now,
Hmm.
it seems very out of reach, to have that conversation. Like, how can I be grateful? How can I be content when there's so much shit going on in the world? And like it seems, um, it may seem difficult for a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? Um, but understanding that all of these things come and go, right? I think, and I'm not asking you to go back and bright side everything and think about, oh, this used to be like this, and this is like, oh, I came out of that. But we talk about COVID like it's ancient history.
That was so long ago.
And, COVID impacted all of our lives, whether, we were prepared for it or not,
Yeah.
whether we, got sick ourselves or someone else we knew got sick or someone else, died because of complications from COVID. Um, but that was that was an intense time of uncertainty for the world.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, what happened in that process? I don't know. I mean, I can only know from my experience and like the people I shared it with. Um, I felt for myself that getting upset, getting stressed out, wasn't the right answer. Wasn't the right answer.
No.
But like, okay, in that instance, the universe has provided me something, in that time was space because I needed to go through a healing process myself,
Yeah.
and so I offered me that space. Now, what this change in the world is going to offer us, I don't know. But to your point, it's like to make yourself open to it and not entrench yourself and not disappear from the process.
Yeah. I think it's so easy to, or the feeling to disconnect and throw your hands up in the air and quit the race and quit altogether because you just felt so passionate about the results of this election or whatever the thing is. And I believe that we need to take a moment to silence ourselves and take some heal. Some people need to heal. Some people need to open their minds a little bit. Me personally, I think opening my mind and a heart a little bit more than maybe it has been is going to be essential for me to keep that inner peace cultivated and still be contentment when um, an older version of me went into a spiral of anger and depression and anger, I guess, was a really strong one if you
Denial.
rewind 8 years ago. So yeah, that's how I'm going to keep moving forward. You asked me when we started this how I'm doing, and I got a little choked up and emotional, and that was a part of me I think wanted to grieve or wants to grieve for the hope that I thought could be, and we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay.
It's perfectly natural to feel that way, and it's going to come and go, and it's going to come in waves. And I invite you and everybody else to let that come naturally and do
Mhm.
what you need to do to make yourself feel okay.
Yeah,
You know, like whatever that is, taking time away from social media, connecting with your community, doing things with friends, doing things that make you feel good, um, whatever that is. But be aware that those things are really important as you go through this time.
yeah,
I think about like um, the story of like a Zen monk who lived in a temple that was falling apart, and he was the only one to take care of it, and he had no money, and he would meditate in the same spot every day. And one day the roof fell in while he was meditating, and it rained, and the rain poured on him, and so he continued his meditation, and the somebody had come to see him, and they said, well, why don't you fix the roof? And he said, well, I don't have any money to fix the roof. And he said, well, what will you do? He said, well, I'll just move to the other side of the temple and meditate, and I respect that this hole exists and that rain will come through that hole when it rains. But I can step out of that. My practice allows me to step out of that and still find my peace
Mm-hmm.
by other means. I'm not going to let something like that um, distract from my ability to continue on with my journey. And that's where we are right now. Like, we're so like, oh shit, it's pouring, it's raining through that hole for a lot of people. I need what now? Like, and so understanding that you can move away from that and still
Yeah.
find your thing.
Yeah. And I want people to understand and hear that moving away from it does not mean you do not care and you're not engaged, or we're, meeting this expectation that we now stand up and fight. Like, just acknowledging that some people have to step away so they can come back with a clear mind and a better focus of what they need to do.
Yeah, when I mean step away is like continue to do what you do, but give your space to. Sometimes it may have to change a little bit, but you can continue on.
Yeah.
And I think too, you brought up what this podcast is all about, and those two words, no expectations. And I had a conversation with somebody recently, and they're like, "Well, I don't really understand this whole no expectations thing that you guys talk about. It like it seems kind of like you're closing yourself off. Like you're just saying, oh, I'm whatever. I don't really care what happens." And my reply was, know that when we live with no expectations, we don't think about the outcome. Then we're removing the boundaries of our lives and opening ourselves up to all new possibilities, and whatever those may be, and
Mm.
learning in those possibilities. Now, will those possibilities always be warm and fuzzy and make us feel great? No. Those possibilities sometimes are, uncomfortable, but there's still as many lessons to be learned in the uncomfortable part as they are in the warm and fuzzy ones. And our journey as spiritual people is to continue that and to show up with a child's mind and openness to see things um, with fresh eyes. And that's hard right now because a lot of people got feeling like they're kind of got beat up.
Hmm.
Right. So,
Yeah, and there's a fear, and there's an ideal of the community they want. We want to be a part of. Just doesn't. There's a fear that it's not going to look like that, and for me, no expectations in this moment means I'm letting go of the need to control. I did my part, and now I'm still going to wake up and, you know, go through it. I'm just going to go through it, and I'm not going to close myself off, and I'm not going to shut down opportunities to learn and grow because I'm angry or sad.
right. I will say let's go back to like finding your community, finding support where you need it. You're not alone in this process. Right now, there's a lot of people who feel alone, right? And maybe you know, so find your communities. If you're listening to us and you're having a difficult time finding your communities, reach out to us, DM us, and
Absolutely.
and message us, and we'll help connect you with people that can in communities that can help you and that you can be a part of and feel enriched by. Um, and you know, understand that this is a process.
Yeah,
So not alone is really a thing. Like you are not alone. And even
that's
though
true.
we talk about a spiritual practice being solitary, it is for a while. But then what you're doing is when you're in that process of being solitary, you're cultivating that thing that you want to share with other people. But when shit is weird and you feel alone, then's the time to break out of that and reach out and find your community, find your people, find what it makes you happy.
Yep, yep. Look for those signs of being alone or loneliness, and just again to reiterate what Andrew said, reach out to us. We consider ourselves in this spiritual community of doing what we can to help others who are suffering. And come on.
Yeah, this podcast is not about monetizing. It's not about making anything. You don't make anything. It's about just sharing our journey in a very real way, and that's what I've always enjoyed about it. And that's what this is about. It's about giving everybody a chance to find community and find like, oh, that makes sense to me, or that guy's a clown. That doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. Just have a conversation, right? Just have a conversation. So I think what we should do, Jen, is probably create some resources. I've written a few articles that are on Medium about ways to work with stress and anxiety. I think we'd like to probably post that, get that out on our social presence, and then send that out to make sure everyone can have access to that and find the tools you need to support you in this time.
I agree. Yep, we'll work on that. Yeah, just follow us on No Expectations, the podcast Instagram if you don't already.
We're on the Facebooks too.
Yeah, I might have deleted my Facebook, so
Well, I mean,
shout out to everyone else who's setting a boundary.
do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So let's leave it there, shall we?
Yeah.
Do the best you can today. I know it sounds like we're actually very calm and somber today, but take the time
I
you
was
need.
listening to the Sex Pistols earlier today, so there's not that much calm and somber.
Anger is an energy too. Anger is an energy too.
Punk rock as hell, man. Let's go. Let's go.
So
Be punk
sometimes
rock.
you need that primal, visceral scream, and only Johnny Rotten can do that for you at this moment.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
take care of yourself. Practice that self-compassion. Contentment will work on later. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Amen.
Bye, everybody.
Love.
Thank you for listening to No Expectations, the podcast. You can like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram at No Expectations, the podcast. And you can listen to our new episodes wherever you get yours.